Hi all, and welcome to Promethean Bryce, the YouTube, on Instagram, and on square.site at Promethean Bryce. So this is going to be another commentary video over one of the sculpts I've done inside Blender. It's a Christmas edition, and this is part 2. Turbo Man, if anyone has noticed. I don't know if you've seen Jingle all the way. Hopefully you have. Pretty good film. I enjoy it. Go watch it if not. But this is just going to be the process, unedited commentary video. Not really a tutorial, but you can get a general idea of things from me doing it. But let's just get straight into it. So, as with every video, I start off by doing a base layer. So that's just getting the foreground, sorry, should I say background images here? I've just inserted them with the reference tool just to get the front and side. You don't really need more than that as a whole, especially when you're sculpting. But if you're doing traditional sort of 3D work, you'll probably need a back and a 3/4 as well. But again, it's not 100% necessary. You just got to get that basic reference. And that's all we're doing here in this video. If you just can see right now what's going on, I'm getting that very basic shape of the entire sort of body and head rather than the backpack, which we'll do later. I just class the backpack as sort of a part of the gear as an item rather than part of himself. So everything I'll do the clothes afterwards, but we'll base out all the body first. Now, what I'm doing here is just doing the hands, and I'll do them separated just because it's easier to do, and you can get the knuckles. Because what I'm going to do later, as I do with all my other sculpts, is I'll start off by doing a animation pose, T pose usually from now on. I started with A poses, but realized T poses are better to do anyway. I'll do that and I'll do it separate. So I'll join it for the final animation version, and then I'll use the cutouts to pose it in the pose for what I'll do for if anyone wants to print. On the subject, I do have a buy me a coffee, which you can support me on at Promethean Bryce, and also buy these sculpts or join the membership tier and get them all for free. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. On this one in particular, I've decided not to do a full underlayer just because it's like the body armor itself is actually muscle. So I thought I'll just do that straight away just to save me a bit of time, and because I don't really need the underlayer for that because there's no real sort of skin showing or any clothes showing, and I don't intend to show that. It's just the Turbo Man itself. So I went straight into doing the armor. So all I'm doing to do that is to use the sculpt tools to cut into, take away. Very rarely do I add, but it's if I add, I tend to add if it's something that really needs it. Most of the time I'll be using the move tool to the side to move it into that position, remeshing it from the other side just to get the topology correct and to get the numbers, the polygon count in to get more detail. And then usually either the top tool that you can see on here, which is just adding and taking away, or the crease tool, because that seems to be the best one that works in my opinion. So yeah, so once I've got that base done, like I was saying, like I said, I tend to do feet and hands as a base, a little bit more advanced, just because they're a little bit more difficult to do later on down the line. As you can see, I've not made him in this exact reference pose, just because the reference I find, I could only really find a toy version of him, so I've had to sort of do a little bit of editing. So you'll notice a few things a little bit off, but then again, you'll always have a little bit off anyway. So yeah, so I've basically just trying to get as much of the detail of each part of this. I don't know if you'd call it armor or outfit, but you just get as much as you can down. It's like an advanced base layer. So you're still not getting every tiny piece of detail like cut-ins or lines, but you're still getting enough information to say get muscle mass, massive sections of cutouts or separations, and we're just doing that for the entire thing here. I'll start to color this later, because from now on I now color them as I'm going along, and each one's getting better as I do it. But yeah, so you'll notice me at different stages do add the look. For example, now I'm just adding those colors in. I'm not going too advanced on the color. It's more to get the shape, because when you use that basic gray, you can't really tell excuse me, if you're in that shape properly, because it kind of just all merges into one, and your eyes kind of get used to it. So if you put a different color onto it, the color of what you needed, not only does it look pretty cool in the end, and you've got that sort of overall feel, you can actually see mistakes or things that need to be improved. So that's just a bit of advice if I was going to give some. But here I've done usually I'll do a hard surface model, which is just sort of anything with sharp corners or hard edges. I usually do them separately, but here I've actually used the flatten tool section to go around the edges. If you can just tell, I mean, it's hard to do sped up, but this is about 8 hours worth of work, so I can't really show the 8 hours, and I can't really show enough in the sped up version. But like I said, I don't know if you can just tell, but when I've done this, I'll flatten it with that flatten tool. See that red there, and it just creates like what looks to be an edge. So because like I said, it's armor, it's hard surface, so you want that flat, then the curve. And yeah, so that's only really if you're doing armor or stuff like that. But like I said, if you got, say, I don't know, you're doing a scope for a gun, you would use a cylinder and then really make it harsh, and if there's anything smooth, you'll add that on top. If you are planning to use this for, say, an animation where you want sort of the things to be destroyed, you probably want to boolean and extract them as well, just so they come off as separate parts. As it's not going to be used for that, I didn't really feel the need to do it. But at the end of this, I would join them all together anyway. And when you join the mesh and remesh it all as one, it kind of gives it that look anyway. But if you was doing it for, say, an advanced animation where you wanted, say, the character's armor to come off in a fight, you would keep that armor separate and then just boolean it, like I said, to get that general shape. Parent rather than join it, and then you can sort of play around with that in animation. But like I said, it's not what I'm doing on this, so it's fine. Just a heads up for anyone planning to do that. So if I'm doing something that's a bit larger, like I've just done there with the ankle, I'll say, I'm not sure, like it's a boot, but it's not really a boot. But because it's a little bit over and it's not on the skin, I haven't used the technique that I've used before in previous videos where I'll mask it and then extract it. What I've done is I've built it separately as a full mesh, and to get that sort of thin looking layer, what I've done is I've masked, like I would with the body, I've masked it around and extracted that single layer, and then extruded it just enough to get that thickness. If you didn't do that, you could boolean it realistically, but it's better doing it the mask way because you get it a bit neater, and you can it creates the mesh so it's sort of sculptable. Whereas if you boolean something, it doesn't really let you sculpt it properly. If anyone could help me with that in the comments, that'd be great. I'm not sure why it does, but it never seems to work for me. But anyway, so this is the shoe. I've done that. So again, this is what I was saying about the hard surface. So because it's hard surface and it needs to be at a harsh angle, I've used I sort of blocked it out and then smoothed it afterwards to get a little bit of a neater look, but it's still harsh enough to be the bottom sole of the foot. And then I added the part of the shoe to make it look like it's into the seam, because that's what it would do naturally anyway. And like I said, with everything on this one, I've not really I've more used the flat tool because it's quite rounded for the most part. So anything that's more organic looking, I'll use the sculpt tool, like I've done here, and then use the flat to get the edges different. And then I've just copied these over. If you notice in the reference, at first I only did one of these, but the reference is actually missing it. I noticed that later. And then I found a better picture, and I duplicate that arm device. And I remembered from the film anyway, because when he fires the sort of the Turbo Man Batarang things that he fires at the end, I remembered from the film, and then I was rewatching it actually just a couple of days ago, and I noticed he fires from both arms, so I had to change that anyway. So, but I caught it in time. It's just making sure you get the correct reference. But even if it was a little bit different, you've got your own twist on things anyway. So yeah, once I've done that, when I do the hands, I usually do it afterwards and just add, say, a bit of knuckle and a bit of, joints. But as this was a glove, I've sort of creased it and creased every little bit with the symmetry tool. So it's not completely different, but it does look unique on each one. And then that's how I've done that. Everything here I'll duplicate over to the other side, and eventually, like I said, I'll merge it. So this is another example of me using the hard edge organic method, even though on this one, really and truthfully, I could have used, say, a cube and made it out of the cube. Either way, it worked fine. So like I said, once you've done that, you duplicate it over. Duplicating it over really just kind of gets you, again, it's making it seem correct. And if you can tell anything that you need to change, and it's just neat anyway. But you'll notice I'll constantly delete one side and bring the other side back. Sorry about this today, I've got a bit of a cold. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the curve tools, extruding them in the set end section, and then it just makes things hard surface edge things that go around or at a certain angle, keeps that sort of hard edge, but lets you play around a bit more. Once I've got the shape I want, I turn that into a mesh in order to start sculpting on it. Sometimes I won't even turn it into a mesh at all. Depends on well, I won't need to turn it into a mesh. Just depends on how much detail I want in it. If it's just a belt, just to say a lever or a belt, I'll just keep it flat. Then you're just constantly adding things over and over. And like I said, depending on what you want to do with the final outcome, you might want to say make that belt a little bit more, cut it, use a boolean and cut it so the belt can be opened. So I've gone back to using this method for now. I might switch between them, but on one of my previous videos, I used the cutout method where I did the nose and the mouth separate. But on this one, I felt I could get that look a bit better if I did it all as one. So I've just used those, like I said, those tools where I've pulled it out. Once I add to it, I constantly remesh just to give it more vertices so I can work with more. But Arnold Schwarzenegger's face here is quite hard to do because he's so. The thing you'll find with doing, say, celebrities or characters, they'll need to look as close to the person as possible, which is actually really hard to do, especially when you're first starting out. You just keep going over, like just with everything else, keep going over and over, checking some external reference, checking the reference you've got here, and just try as close as you can. Some better than others. You'll get used to it. I mean, even I'm still working on getting these as neat as possible. A lot of the time, it's just changing up your methods. And once you get like a more smoother way of doing things or a more convenient way of doing things, you tend to get better at it. Because I've gone back as well to using the eye method where I extrude it out, the lids, rather than what I did before. It's better for realistic models anyway. And you can get away with it with, say, a comic or an anime figure. But if you noticed with the previous video I actually did with my anime girl Christmas one, I did that with the eyelids out. But yeah, like I said, it's just constantly going over to the side, turning the transparency sort of up and down and getting it as close as you can. Again, here is where the reference, because it's not exact reference, his eyes were a little bit lower than the front from the side. If that's the case, you've just kind of got to pick one and stick with it. or else you're just going to keep going back and forth, and it's going to keep going down. You're going to keep editing from the side, go in front, and it's going to keep there. If you can get the reference exact, perfect, but some things don't, so you just got to be careful. And again, adding that color, that skin color there, has really helped me see what's going wrong. It really just sort of show you it a bit more finished, as it were. So then also I'm adding the eyebrows as well here, just to, again, once again, I've got that sort of reference to see if the face is actually correct. So in this one, this is, like I said, the mask method, where if you want something to the exact shape of it, you mask it and extract it. And then you extract that as a new vertex, because this is the bit where it goes around, is the neck connects to the head, and it's so tight to the skin, you want it as into those folds as much as possible. So that's why I use that method. And as for the helmet, I've gone different with that. So you've got your, back to your normal one, you build the base, like I was saying earlier at the start of the video, because it's classed as an outfit, I've done it later rather than doing it before, or is it just going to be too much base mesh? You want to do it by sections. So you want to go base body, base sort of hairs and that, and face, ears, and then base outfits, and then base sort of bags, extras. But again, you're just going back and over. In some cases, I'll add extras like this for the top, because I didn't feel that was the best way to do it. So I've added that one because it's much better to do it separately, and the side of the ears in a minute. But if you saw that rim across sort of the eyes, I did forget to do the visor that he has at the end of this video, purely because this reference here completely wasn't on there and I forgot. So the final one doesn't have it, but because it's only a sculpt anyway, it would sort of deter away from the sort of Schwarzenegger face, so I've left it off anyway. But yeah, so just one single mesh, and if I can get that sort of part where the visor does come out, I've done that in with the helmet. And then anything that's sort of more in depth, I've built separately, like these earpieces, like I said before. I'm also constantly changing the lighting as well, because that can also help with seeing if things are correct. So this is a Boolean method. What I've done here is these things cut in, and I thought, rather than wasting time and trying to get that accurate, if I duplicate them over, build the cut in there, and then cut it out like that, and then just smooth it off afterwards. So Boolean it, smooth it. That way you've got the cut out much better and much neater, because sometimes if you're editing it, it can sometimes be off level. And for an organic thing, that can be good and fine. But for a non-organic sort of hard model, it's not very good. It just shows that it's been, say, worked on. So if it's hard surface, always cut in with a Boolean. If it's something extra, unless you can edit it in if you can, but if it's an organic, Boolean it in just as well, because it's just so much more better looking and smoother. So at first, this is the backpack I started doing. I did this the organic style method way with the ball, but because it was so hard surfaced, I found that it wasn't looking very good. So this is the sort of the first test, and you can do it this way if you can, but I found it better to go back to the original method of getting the old cube out, getting the settings, getting the T shape there, getting that basic set out again, bringing it down as much as I can, getting that very basic shape, and then using the sculpt tools afterwards to sort of secure that shape a bit more round, if you see there. And then afterwards, that's where I'll add the remesh to start sculpting inside of it, because you're always going to need to remesh something if it's brought in order to actually sculpt on it, or else you're just sculpting on flat planes and it would do nothing essentially. So again, I've noticed that another one of those problems where I said the hard surface, and then you want to build it separately. So what I did was tried to build it as best I could. Again, with the reference, you couldn't really see what this looked like, so I was going off my memory from the film, the reference I've got here, and any I could find. I found one backpack reference. It's a little bit of an obscure one to do, really, so it was hard to find reference for, but this is what I'm saying. You've got to really... It's great to have your reference, but sometimes you're not even going to have reference, or you're creating a character out of your mind, and it's good practice anyway to sort of do it yourself. If you've got the reference, great, use it. But if you haven't got the reference, don't be scared to just sort of add things and go off, be a bit creative. Like here, for example, I've added bolts and drill-ins to make it look like it's a drilled together backpack. Like it's got a bit more about it rather than the exact look, what it would look like on, say, the film. So it just adds a little bit of creativity, and it also looks pretty cool. So again, pick your moments. If you've got a very what's going to look like detailed item, build it separately and add it in or take it away. If it's small like a line or a bolt, put it straight in with the sculpt. For example, here I've cut out the fan at the back and I've built the fan separately and then stuck it in. So all the parts built separately and then joined together. If I tried to sculpt that in, it wouldn't be movable if it was for an animation. Like I said, it's not going to matter because mine isn't an animation, but good practice as well anyway. But if I sculpt it in, it would look messy and it's not needed. So do it separately. And that's just the same advice for everything on this pack. You've got your parts that are built in and your parts that are done separately. So again, it's picking what you need. This is where I moved it over, by the way. But it's pick your moments. Don't just think straight away I can do it separately. If you can do it in, do it in. And then this is what I'm saying. At the end of a video, at the end of a model, you just want to be adding those, say, names, logos. If you can do it with textures, that's cool. But if preferred, if it is a cut in, like I've got here with the small bits, model it in. So I did them first just to get them sort of out of the way and get the final armor, because I knew the T was going to come afterwards anyway. So like I said, with the other method, I've done that hard surface, remeshed it so I can sculpt it, so I can get that exact shape in. Turned it so the T looks correct to the T on the Turbo Man suit, and then used the cutting tools to add that muscle layer the same as what I did before, so it looks like it's on top of that. Then when I've done it in the A pose, since that was the pose here, I grab the arm, turn it to the T pose, duplicate it over, and then you've got the T pose, and you've just add in the sort of bit underneath the armpit. That's pretty hard to do when you're in an A pose, which is the reason, by the way, that I do them in T poses now anyway. But again, once you've done that for the animation version, you can join it together. So you save a separate file with it all separate, and then you keep one animation, one pose file. Well, that's what I do if you want to do it similar to me. And then any area that joins that isn't a hard surface mesh, so this is for the most part, especially if you're just doing a human model, you're going to want to join it together, remesh it, so you can smooth it off afterwards with the smooth tool, so it looks like one single piece rather than multiple pieces. When it comes to hands and feet, if you've got toes or fingers, you're going to want a lower quality on them, the remesh, but be warned, if it's below a 0.1, it's going to slow your computer down big time. But sometimes it needs to be done so the mesh doesn't blend together. Recently I figured a bit more out about that, and if you do the hands last, so you do the body and the feet, do the feet and the hands last, do the feet to, say, a -1, and then add it again, join, remesh, and then the value can go up to, say, a 15 to a 2. I don't know if this is making sense. You'll know if you're in Blender, you'll see the settings. So you can have a high setting because it's going through the whole mesh rather than the small, just that bit, and it will save your computer time and save your polygon count from being into the millions, into the low millions, or even the thousands. So this is the part now where I've saved that out separately. I've gone back to the original mesh where the A pose was, and then I've started to pose this in the Turbo Man, the Jamie pose. So hopefully that was a good enough impression for you. Most of the time I'm keeping the mouth simple and just sort of curving it to make a smile or a frown. Sometimes in the Colossus video I did this, I'll open it to make a different sort of face shape, but sometimes you don't need to. But if you do, keep the face file to a separate when you do it on the base, and then just redo the mouth. But it all is a case of positioning everything the way you want it. Check it over, make sure you've got it correct. I did make a small mistake here that I had to correct here with the arm because I didn't realize I twisted the sort of bicep around, but I did fix it, which is lucky. Once you've done that, it's just joining it together, like I said, and then remeshing it and making it look organic. With this one, I didn't really need to do too much because most of it's armor where it's separated out anyway. So we only really had to do the joints and the hands and the legs and the neck. I think I did the neck. No, I didn't even need to do the neck because it's separated. And then everything else gets paired together or joined together and not remeshed. And if you have to change any colors, just add some colors, stuff like that. But basically, that's really about it. I mean, if you've got any questions for me, if I've missed anything, just drop me a comment in the comment section and I'll see what I can do. But yeah, like I said, we're coming up to the close of this video. So if you liked this video, please like, share, comment, subscribe, the usual. Go watch my other videos. And I'll see you in the next one. But quickly, here's the final piece. I really do hope you've enjoyed. Like I said, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you later.